The world has always feared what it cannot control. It bows before the ones who submit, who follow the rules, who stay within the invisible chains society places around them. But the moment someone breaks free, when they rise above limitations, refuse to be shackled by expectations, and claim their true power, fear takes over. And when the one who was once oppressed turns into something unstoppable, something beyond their comprehension, the very people who tried to mold them now tremble in terror. This is the story of those who were meant to be broken, yet they shattered the system instead. The ones marked by divine hands, chosen by forces greater than mortal understanding, who walked through fire and came out not just unscathed, but transformed. You were never supposed to wake up. They built a cage so perfect, so seamless, that they believed you would never see the bars. It started when you were young, when they whispered limitations into your ears, shaping the way you saw yourself. They taught you to doubt, to question your own instincts, to believe that power was something reserved for others. They convinced you that obedience was safety, that submission was peace, that to be accepted, you had to stay small. The world conditioned you to believe that you were ordinary, that your voice did not matter, that your dreams were too big, too unrealistic. And for a time, you believed them. You played your part, followed their rules, walked the path they paved for you. But deep inside, something never settled. A voice, a feeling, a spark of something greater refused to die, no matter how much they tried to smother it. Then came the moment everything changed. The day you finally saw through the illusion. It wasn't an instant realization, but a slow, burning truth that built over time, pushing against the falsehoods they had fed you. Maybe it was betrayal that woke you up, a trusted mentor who showed their true face, a friend who abandoned you when you needed them most. Maybe it was loss, pain, suffering that cracked the walls of your mind, revealing the reality they had hidden from you. Or perhaps it was silence, those moments of deep solitude where you heard your own soul for the first time, screaming at you to wake up, to see, to rise. Whatever it was, it left you no choice but to step outside the boundaries they had set. And the moment you did, everything changed. The chains that once felt unbreakable now seemed like illusions. The words they used to control you, duty, responsibility, expectation, turned to dust in your hands. You saw the patterns, the lies, the manipulation that had kept you in place. You saw how they needed you to be weak, how they thrived off your silence, how their power existed only because you gave it to them. And as this truth sank into your bones, something within you shifted. You felt it for the first time, true strength. Not the kind they gave you permission to have, not the kind they defined for you, but something raw, something untamed, something that belonged to you alone. The moment you stopped seeking their approval, the moment you decided you would no longer live for their expectations, was the moment you became free. But freedom is not without its price. The moment you stepped out of their control, they felt it. They saw the change, and they panicked, because they knew. They knew they had built something powerful, something that had the potential to destroy them. And now that you were awake, now that you had broken free, they could no longer contain you. Fear gripped them, twisting their faces, darkening their whispers. You were no longer the obedient follower, no longer the quiet servant of their system. You had become something else, something they could not predict, something they could not control. You had become the monster they created. At first, they tried to reason with you. They used guilt, shame, their old weapons of manipulation. "This is not who you are," they said, as if they ever truly knew you. "Come back, follow the path, don't let anger consume you." But you saw through their words. It was not concern that fueled them, it was fear. Fear of what you would become if left unchecked. Fear of what you would uncover now that the veil had lifted. fear of the destruction you could bring to everything they built. When reasoning failed, they turned to threats. They called you dangerous, reckless, ungrateful. They twisted your story, painted you as the villain, made others fear you before they could see the truth for themselves. Because if they could not control you, they would make the world hate you instead. But what they didn't realize was that it no longer mattered. Their words, their opinions, their fears, none of it could reach you anymore. You were beyond their grasp, beyond their petty games of power and control. You had walked through the fire and emerged something else entirely. And now they would see the full force of what they had created. You were no longer the helpless one, the forgotten one, the overlooked and underestimated. You were power itself, the embodiment of everything they had tried to suppress. And now, the world that once sought to cage you would have to face the reckoning of its own making. The fear in their eyes was proof of your transformation. They had tried to break you, and in doing so, they had forged something indestructible, a force no longer bound by the old rules, no longer willing to play the game. You had become the monster they feared, the one they whispered about in hushed voices. And now, standing at the edge of a world that no longer held you captive, one truth remained clear. This was only the beginning. They never expected you to rise. They thought the weight of their lies, the burden of their expectations, would be enough to keep you shackled. But now, as they watch you stand tall, unchained and unafraid, the illusion they built begins to crumble. The fear in their eyes is unmistakable. They know they no longer hold power over you. But fear is a dangerous thing. It makes people desperate, and desperate people will go to any lengths to reclaim control. At first, they try to contain the damage quietly. They whisper behind closed doors, spreading rumors, rewriting your story to make themselves the victims. They've changed, they say, shaking their heads in feigned sorrow. They used to be one of us, but now they've lost their way. They plant seeds of doubt, hoping to turn those closest to you against you. They know that isolation is their greatest weapon, that if they can make you stand alone, you might falter. But what they fail to realize is that you have already walked the path of solitude. You have faced your own darkness, embraced it, and emerged stronger. You do not fear being alone anymore, because you are no longer lonely. You have yourself, your power, your purpose, and that is enough. But they are not satisfied with whispers. When words fail to break you, they escalate. They try to drag you back into the system by force. They use the same rules you once followed, twisting them into chains, hoping you will submit out of habit. They call you reckless, accuse you of being dangerous. They paint you as the villain in a story they control, convincing the masses that you are the real threat. And for a moment, you see it, the hesitation in the eyes of those who once stood by your side, the doubt creeping into their minds, because that's the nature of fear. It makes people believe the lie if it means they don't have to face the truth. But you have come too far to turn back now. You have seen the truth, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. So you do not waste time convincing them. You do not beg for understanding or plead for acceptance. You simply continue forward, knowing that those who are meant to see will open their eyes in time. The rest, they were never meant to walk this path with you. And so, they escalate again. If they cannot control you, if they cannot bend you to their will, then they will try to break you. They strike where they think you are weakest, targeting the things you love, the people you care about. They hope that by hurting those around you, they can provoke you into reacting, into proving their narrative true. But what they do not realize is that you are no longer the person they once knew. You do not react, you act. You do not play their game, you change the rules entirely. The fire inside you burns brighter, hotter, consuming the last remnants of the old self they tried to chain down. You are no longer just resisting. You are no longer just escaping. You are something else now, something unstoppable. And they feel it. The air shifts when you walk into a room. The power radiating from you is undeniable. Even those who once doubted you cannot ignore it. They may not understand it, but they feel it, the weight of your presence, the force of your will. And that terrifies them, because they know, deep down, that they have lost. They cannot control you. They cannot stop you. And worst of all, they know they are the ones who created you. Every hardship they forced upon you, every betrayal, every lie, every moment of pain, they thought it would break you. Instead, it forged you into something stronger than they ever could have imagined. They built the fire meant to destroy you, and now you stand before them, burning brighter than ever. And so, the final choice is theirs. They can continue to fight, to resist, to cling desperately to the illusion of control. But deep down, they already know how this ends. The system they created, the world they built on lies and manipulation, it will fall. It is only a matter of time. And you will not stop, because you are no longer just fighting for yourself. You are fighting for every person who has ever felt trapped, for every soul who has ever been silenced. You are not just one. You are a force, an idea, a movement that cannot be caged. They tried to break you. Now, they will learn what happens when the unbreakable rises. They see now what they have done. The fear in their eyes is no longer hidden behind masks of authority and control. It is raw, naked, undeniable, because they know there is no going back. They pushed too far, underestimated too greatly, and now they stand face to face with the consequence of their own making. The monster they tried to suppress, to control, to keep beneath their feet, has risen. And it is not just awake, it is unstoppable. You were never meant to survive. That was the unspoken truth behind every obstacle they placed in your way. They never expected you to break free, to see the world beyond their carefully crafted illusion. They counted on your silence, on your obedience, on your fear. But they failed to understand something fundamental. Suffering does not always break a person. Sometimes it forges them into something far more powerful than they ever intended. And that is exactly what has happened. You are no longer fighting to escape. You are no longer just proving your worth. That battle was won long ago. Now, it is something much bigger. Now, you are rewriting the very fabric of reality they built. You are showing the world that their system, their control, their carefully constructed rules are nothing but smoke and mirrors. You have stepped beyond their reach, beyond their ability to contain, and they cannot stand it. They lash out in desperation, their attacks growing wilder, their lies more absurd. They twist the narrative, trying to convince the world that you are the enemy, that your power is unnatural, dangerous. They tell others that you have become what they always feared, a monster, a force of destruction. And perhaps in a way they are right, but not in the way they think, because you are a monster, but not the kind they want to paint you as. You are not a villain, not a mindless beast lashing out in anger. No, you are something far more terrifying to them. You are a force of reckoning, a reminder that no system, no power built on oppression and control can stand forever. You are proof that no matter how tightly they try to hold on to their illusion, the truth will always rise. And others are starting to see it. People who once followed without question are beginning to doubt. They are beginning to see through the cracks, to notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions. The fear that once kept them obedient is shifting, because now they see something they never thought possible, someone who broke free, someone who stood against the very thing they thought was unbreakable and walked away stronger. And that terrifies those in power more than anything else, because they know that you are not alone. For every person who breaks free, for every soul who dares to step beyond the chains, the system loses its grip. They can silence one voice, but they cannot silence 1,000. They cannot stop an idea, a movement, a shift that is spreading faster than they can control. They created you, thinking they could use you, mold you, destroy you if needed. But now, they see their mistake. They didn't just create an outlier. They created a leader. And as you stand there, watching the walls of their carefully crafted world begin to shake, you realize something they never wanted you to know. You were never the weak one. They were. They were the ones who needed control to feel powerful. They were the ones who relied on deception, on keeping others blind to maintain their rule. Without their systems, their lies, their manipulation, they are nothing. And that is why they fear you. Because you don't need them. You never did. You are not bound by their rules anymore. You are something greater. And as the world begins to shift, as those who were once blind begin to see, one thing becomes clear. This is no longer just your fight. This is a war for truth, for freedom, for something beyond even yourself. And no matter what they do now, no matter how hard they try to push back, they cannot stop what has begun. But desperation makes people dangerous. Their fear, their crumbling control, drives them to new extremes. When lies fail, they turn to force. When force fails, they turn to destruction. If they cannot have power, they will burn everything to the ground before they let it slip from their grasp. They believe that if they make the world chaotic enough, if they turn the people against each other, if they create enough fear, they can convince everyone that they are still needed, that their rule is still necessary. And this is where the true battle begins. It is no longer just about you. It is about the world they are trying to keep in chains, about the people they are willing to sacrifice just to maintain their illusion of control. You have already broken free, but now you must decide. Will you simply watch them fall, or will you bring the final blow yourself? Will you stand by as they set fire to everything, or will you rise and show the world that there is another way? This is not a fight of brute strength. This is not about who can strike the hardest, who can tear down the most. No, this is a battle of perception, a war of reality itself. They thrive on fear, on division, on the belief that their rule is necessary. But what happens when people stop believing? What happens when the illusion is shattered, not by force, but by truth? They have spent years, decades, centuries convincing the world that power belongs only to the chosen few, that the rest must simply obey. But you are living proof that this is a lie. You were never meant to be powerful in their eyes, and yet here you stand, stronger than any of them. You were never supposed to escape, and yet you did. And now your existence alone is enough to shake the very foundation of their world. They fear you because they cannot control you. They hate you because they cannot stop you. And now, as they stand on the precipice of their own downfall, they are left with only one question: how much longer can they hold on? But the real question is, do they even realize they have already lost? Because the moment you broke free, the moment you stepped beyond their reach, the countdown to their fall had already begun. And no matter how hard they fight, no matter how desperately they cling to their illusions, the end is inevitable. And they know it. They know it's over. They won't admit it, not yet, not even to themselves. But you can see it in their eyes, in the way their voices tremble when they speak, in the way their hands clench tighter around the last remnants of their power. The empire they built is crumbling, and they are grasping at dust, hoping to hold on to something that no longer exists. They were the ones who cast you out, thinking it would break you. They were the ones who pushed you, tested you, forced you into the darkness, believing you would never return. But you did, and not as the person they once knew. That version of you, the obedient, the silent, the controlled, is long gone. What stands before them now is something they cannot define, something they cannot predict. And that terrifies them, because you are free. You are no longer bound by their words, their expectations, their chains. You do not live in their reality anymore. You have seen beyond it, broken through the illusion, and now you walk a path they cannot follow. They scream, they threaten, they try to pull you back with memories of what once was, of who you used to be. But it is too late. That person no longer exists. The monster they feared, the force they tried to suppress. It is not destruction, it is rebirth, and that is what truly breaks them, because deep down they always knew they were not as strong as they pretended to be. Their power was never real. It was borrowed, stolen, built upon the backs of those too afraid to fight back. But now the illusion is shattered. The world is watching. The cracks are too deep to be ignored. There is no need for revenge, no need for destruction. The greatest victory is simply this: you exist, you rise, you walk forward without them, and as you do, others begin to follow, because now they see the truth. If you could break free, so can they. If you could rise, so can they. The world they tried so hard to control is slipping from their grasp, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. They will rage, they will lash out, they will try to rebuild the old system, to create new chains, to find new ways to make people believe in the lie. But it will never be the same, because once the truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. And the truth is simple: you were never the one who was weak. You were never the one who needed saving. They were, and now their time is over. You walk away, not because you are running, but because they no longer matter. Their words hold no weight. Their threats are empty. Their power is gone. The world moves forward, and so do you. Not as a victim, not as a pawn in their game, but as something else entirely. Something they never wanted you to become. Something they always feared you would be. Free. And nothing in this world is more powerful than that. And with that final step, you leave them behind, not with rage, not with regret, but with the quiet certainty that you have won. They no longer define you. Their world no longer holds you. You are free, and that is the one thing they can never take back.